Hi. Hi, me. I think I'm the only one here right now. But it is Wednesday and it is time, so let's talk about breathing. Yeah, let's talk about breathing. What could be more important right now than breathing? I'm going to create my COVID beard. And I kind of like this because, and yes, this is one of the ones I've made. Because, pardon me, I like this because it covers the parts of me that make me look, that remind me that I'm not in my 30s. So there's my COVID beard, and I feel like half a nun, the way they would wear the things and wimples and veils and whatever that thing's called. I think that's part of a wimple. I don't know. Anyway, step into my library. This is the Zen Witch, and tonight I want to talk about breathing, and I've got some books to talk to you about, but I've got some other stuff to tell you about too. So let's start with a little bit of a story. Looky what happened. Yes, I am very sad. Here are the bits. Look what I done. I knocked it over. Yeah, so we were out on the porch having a fire and having a lovely time, and some new neighbors moved in. Yay! And they were doing some spray painting, and the wind was going the right way, and then it shifted, and I got up to walk a little distance away, and I had been, you know, burning some sage, and I wasn't paying attention, and I went and I set it down on the table, but it wasn't really on the table, and I started walking, and it fell and crack. And I mean, I've had this for so many years, so many years. So immediately I was like, bad omen, that's a really, but then it's like, okay, so here's an encounter with superstition and dogma. that, those things that I'm allergic to that you've heard me say a million times. And um, superstition might say, uh-oh, this is a terrible sign. Something bad is going to happen. Oh no, oh no. And then I go into duck and cover mode. Um, but then again, I look at it and it's like, no, what is it that's mine in this? What am I responsible for? Well, I'm responsible for not being mindful enough and not watching what I was doing, and it was an accident, and I dropped it, and it's an impermanent thing. So, the Buddhist thing comes to the fore, and it's because I'm making a choice. I'm making a choice to reject the superstition. If I were to go into that mindset and be thinking, something awful is going to happen anytime now, and oh no, what did I do? I'm going to be looking for things to go wrong, and possibly even being less mindful. So it's a choice of, I choose an empowered stance, which says accidents happen, people make mistakes, and things are impermanent. And so I have another one that we made ourselves. This one I bought at a psychic fair powwow type thing. So, and I'm going to keep it on my altar in the condition it's in. I thought, oh, I'll repair it and, repair it like Japanese and put gold paint and everything. But no, it's for burning sage. And I'm going to keep it like this as a reminder to be mindful. Indeed. So, I'm probably going to be telling you a lot of stories tonight. So the first thing here when we're talking about breathing is I want to clear the air. And you might hear the hum of my, and I'm going to take this off. You might hear the hum of my air conditioner going, and that's weird. Okay, so with it on, it actually does a thing that it was pushing my voice up towards my ears and making me feel a little claustrophobic. Now, when I go out of the house, I have it like that when I'm in the car, because I kind of like flying the flag. If people are wondering who's wearing masks, me, and then I can just pull it up, when I'm going out into a store. But I'm home now, and I'm not going to do that because I want to be comfortable for the next hour and something. So you might hear the hum of the air conditioner, and that's because my allergies are horrible. So I'm a little fuzzy-headed tonight. Tylenol, Sudafed, and everything else. And I like 4 different times I went to shut the air conditioner off and open the windows because it's not as hot as it was yesterday. And then I remember there's a reason I have a headache today. So again, we will start with a little smoke cleansing. And I mean a little smoke cleansing because my allergies are bad. And yes, sage does clear bacteria and viruses and stuff from the air, but it also puts particulate material into the air and carbon and stuff. So I'm being nice to myself. Just enough. There, we'll have just enough to bring the scent and get me breathing. All right. So going through my library, breath. I mean, breath is the element that it's air is the element we can do without for the very shortest length of time before we die. So, it's terribly important, and breathing is terribly important. It's the foundation of health. It's kind of like having enough water, being hydrated enough, water element, having enough nutrition, earth element, spark of life, fire element. So, we have to have those basics or we can't be healthy and we can't be alive. And air is so very important, and we breathe so very poorly. Most of us. Western civilization, unless you do some kind of regular meditation, if you've ever even been introduced to meditation as a Westerner, we just don't get taught. Maybe we get taught if you're in choir or something when you're in school. But even athletes and people doing athletic pursuits. I'm trying to think, when you're learning something, how much your coaches talk about breathing and breathing well. They talk about stretching and doing that kind of stuff, but yoga is the one physical discipline, the main one that really makes a point of, and it's part of yoga that everything, movement and breath, are coordinated. So one of my first encounters, um, way back in the 80s, 86 I would say, was when I got a hold of my Shakti Gawain recording. And if you want to hear that story, go to the Storytime, I think it's called Storytime playlist. And it's an old video, like 7, 8 years ago. And it's called The Woman in the White Kimono. So I won't tell you that story here. If you want to hear the story, go there. But, what generated that story was that I had started meditating, and I got this cassette by Shakti Gawain called Creative Visualization, and I was doing it every day. And you definitely coordinated your breath. She had you, physically relaxing. And I'm trying to remember, I don't think she did like coordinated breaths, inhale and exhale this. It was just, breathe and then you start to relax. So it was mostly centered on the muscles in the body and feeling yourself relax. But you can't really do that and relax well without deepening your breathing, and for all the muscles around there, around your diaphragm and in your chest and in your neck and everything, to loosen up and help you breathe better. So it kind of is a side effect of doing visualization and conscious relaxation. But when I started to college, when I was 31, was when I really encountered working with the breath. And that's because I went in without a clue what I wanted to do. And I just took a few classes that I was interested in. And then a friend of mine said, go through the catalog and just find things that look like you dig it, and go take those classes, and you'll know if it's for you or not. So I took a class in costume design, and I actually had a scholarship to go study theater after high school, but being the hot mess I was, couldn't do that. So I thought, well, back to theater, but costume design, and not really costume design, but I always loved putting costumes together from the time I remember in fourth grade making a gypsy costume, sorry for the epithet. And through high school and everything, I remember going to a sock hop once in drag. I mean, I made myself a mustache. I cut my hair, and I used masking tape, and I made a mustache that was very real looking. And I wore my dad's bomber jacket and these great aviator sunglasses and everything. And at an all-girl school, it was a sensation. But I always loved just putting costumes together. And so what I know now is that I love cosplaying. I love cosplay. And I took the costume design class, and I was, a sewer already. And I thought, well, this will be great fun. And the first class was great fun because we were playing with concepts, and we were playing with, translating these concepts into visual form through clothing. And we did a lot of really fun things. And the same thing happened in almost all of my liberal arts classes the whole time I was going to school, is that the professor at some point would grab me and pull me and go, what do you want to do with your life? You should go into geography. You should go into geology. You should go into, should go into techie theater. You should go in, there was just, because I am a good student and I test well. But also, creatively and everything else that in costume design. So Susie, my professor, who was also the head of costume, the costume shop, pulled me aside and said, what do you want to do with your life? And she actually got me a couple of jobs. One of them was working for Porthouse Theater, the summer stock theater in my area, and I worked for the costume shop that summer. And she also got me a job doing wardrobe for a Ziegfeld show that was coming through Cleveland, and it was great. It paid out the ass, but it was there, repairing costumes and dressing actors, and of course it was a Ziegfeld variety show. And so people would come off stage, got to be on the stage right at this time, and redress this person, And I was sicker than a dog. I had bronchitis when I did it, and it paid like it was great. But I'm like, this isn't what I want to do with my life. I want to be on the stage, not behind it, dressing people. So, and then it came to my second costume design class, and we had to go to the library when it was actually a library and no internet. And we had a list as long as your arm of the names of all these clothing pieces like lappets. You know what a lappet is, and different languages and shit. And we had to go to the library, find these sources, define all these things. Well, of course, it was a race because whoever got to the library first copped all the resources, and then you had to wait for them to come back. And so in that process, I realized that I wasn't that interested in clothing, that I just really don't care that much about fashion, and I don't care that much about clothing. So instead, then I went. I worked in the costume shop. I did a work study thing in the costume shop just during the regular school year. So I would be up in the costume shop sewing costumes for whatever production was coming up. And I'd hear them in there talking about things. So the head of costume design was there, and she was talking to her, the woman that ran the shop. And I heard them talking about this play that was going to be done by one of the professors, and it was a big to-do. It was the first time the play had been put up in the U.S., and it had nudity and all kinds of. It had homosexuality, and it had talked about abortion and all this kind of stuff. It was very cutting edge. It's called "The Edge of the Earth is Too Near Violette le Duc." So I heard him talking about this, and they were talking about the lead and what a tough role it was. And they're like, how are we going to find somebody to do this? I mean, this is a really mature role, and we've got all these young students, and is anybody really going to get this? And I'm sitting there, I remember leaning over this table working on something thinking, that's mine. That role is fucking mine. I had not taken a drama class yet. Or had I? Yes, I think I was in my first drama class that you have to take. If you're going to do a theater degree, you've got to take, the basics. So this was the basic drama class. And I went down to the office and got the script and took it home and looked at it, found the longest monologue I could find in it, copied that, practiced it for a little while, went to audition, and I walked in and said, I'm sorry, I do not have this memorized. And I went through that monologue and I got the part. And I was on stage the entire time. The only time I left was intermission. And it was crazy. It was really stressful. I mined up a lot of old emotional shit to inform the part, and then had a hard time putting it away afterwards. But the point here, as my buddy Wayne says, you can summit Mount What's Your Point anytime now. The point was that because I was in this play and it was so demanding, they put me into one of the advanced voice classes. I hadn't taken a voice class yet, and they put me like in voice 3, I think it was. And in theater, when you are performing a part, and I'm talking about stage theater, not so much film, because on stage you have to project. You've got to, it's a very physical discipline, and you've got to protect your voice. And the main thing with learning to be an actor in that sense, and having access to this instrument and every part of it, is learning how to relax, learning how to breathe. Those are the two big things. If you can relax and breathe well, you can use this instrument to its fullest capacity. So that vocal class taught me a lot, and we would go through the most bizarre, just fucking bizarre, encounter things with the group, where she would give us, a script, but while we're doing this Shakespearean script, we're, dancing with each other, and just all kinds of really weird stuff. But also, a lot of diction exercises. There were a lot of stretches, all kinds of things. And you see how blue my tongue is? It's actually green. I ate some licorice. So, and just as an aside, how many of you like black licorice? Nobody, because it's just me here. So what the hell? So anyway, we did all sorts of exercises. And I remember, we would do these breathing exercises, and she would talk about, dropping the breath down and, feeling it, and just, all these really cerebral things that had you mentally connecting with your body and learning to relax. Well, being a ball of stress then, and an unmedicated, untreated ball of stress and anxiety at the time, um, we had to keep a daily journal. And I remember, doing these practices, and it would be like, I just feel like I can't expand my diaphragm today, and the tension, I've got a lot in my shoulders, and then I would chase it down into my legs, and it was just like I was chasing tension all over my body. And then it happened one day. I was standing at my sink, washing some dishes, and hi, Michelle. Hi, Michelle. She doesn't like licorice. Yeah, I'll do a survey at some point. My friend calls it the liver of candy, and she hates liver too, and I like liver, so whatever. But anyway, I'm standing at the sink and I'm doing dishes, and all of a sudden I felt it. I felt my breath drop. I felt like my whole body relaxed, and it was just like I had this enormous capacity for breath. So another point of this is that if you are working on breathing, it's like any kind of exercise. Breathing is a physical thing, but if you're really working to improve this, it's not a one-shot deal. It's a practice, as with anything else. You have to do everything day by day, and it's true. Anybody that plays an instrument knows this, or I'm sure this applies to athletics as well. When you're practicing something and you're trying to perfect a movement, an exercise, a playing technique, some kind of skill, it doesn't go like this. It goes like this. So you practice, you suck, you suck, you suck, you suck, you suck. All of a sudden your skill leaps forward. Oh, wow, I can do that today. And then you start working on the next thing, and then you advance again. And it's also true that when you're doing any kind of physical work like that, every once in a while, if you take a break from it, take a break from practicing a week, even 2 weeks, when you come back to it and you think, oh, I'm going to lose the skill. But if you've been practicing, solidly up to that point, and you've acquired the skill, you take a break from it, and then you come back, it's like suddenly easier. So, and I'm not talking about taking 2 weeks out of every month. I'm talking about, once a year, or when you've really been hammering at it for a long time, and you've got the skill, and just, taking a break and letting yourself sort of integrate those changes. So, anyway, back to the breath. When you're working on improving your breathing, it helps to approach it gently and consistently. Certainly gently, because you don't want to go into things to the point where you're straining. And if you're starting to use muscles that you haven't really used before, it's going to take a little while. And just you can't breathe well unless you can relax. So go at it gently. I am going to, and are you ready for TMI, Michelle, here? One of the things I did before I started tonight is with fibromyalgia and the connective tissue disorder that I have, one of the parts of that is that your mucus discharges are really thick. They're not liquid. And I know that sounds so gross. And, forgive me, but it is what it is. Buck up. So my sinuses don't drain. And I was constantly having low grade sinus infections that would then, trigger the fibromyalgia, and my immune system would get riled up and attack me, and my adrenal, and on and on. So I learned back in the 80s from a friend whose mother did this, and I was talking about, I had gone to this allergist for a couple of years, and I was getting immunotherapy shots from this guy, and I kept having these sinus infections, and I would get one, and go on antibiotics. I would go off the antibiotics and get another sinus infection. And it was just constantly. And from September through, I think it was February, I was on 10 rounds of antibiotics. 10. Imagine they would not do that today. And I finally called him, and I mean, I lived in an upstairs apartment, and when I would go home and just have to drag my legs up the stairs, I mean, it was horrible. I was just so fatigued all the time. And they kept testing me for Epstein-Barr, and it kept being negative. And so I finally called him this one day, and I said, "Where do I surrender? I want to give up. I can't do this. I can't shove myself through another day." And they were going to order some more antibiotics, and I said, "Don't, they're not working, obviously. I feel like if I could just get in there and rinse things out, it would be better." And he's like, "Oh yeah, that'd do you a lot of good." That was the last time I had a conversation with that office. So this friend of mine, I was talking to him about it, and he said, rinse them out with a hose bag, an enema bag, the rubber bag with the hose. I'm talking about the full, the big thing, not the little one. So I got one, and it's a quart of warm water, a teaspoon of sea salt, and then you lean forward and you stick the hose up your nose, take a nice deep breath, and before you let the water loose, you start breathing out through your mouth. And the water goes in through your sinuses and out through your mouth. And I mean, some comes out your sinuses too, and rinses everything out. It doesn't feel like getting water up your nose because it's saline. It feels like when you are aching like hell, like if you have a fever and you're aching and you get in a warm tub, how good that feels. That's what this feels like. So I rinsed my sinuses out. And the first thing is it smells so good. Everything smells so fresh and clean. I can smell the salt. It's very interesting. But definitely makes me feel better, keeps me out of chronic sinus infections because I cannot take an antihistamine. Benadryl knocks me out cold and is a guaranteed sinus infection. Zyrtec also knocks me out, even though it's not supposed to, but highly sensitive person. And it also is, my neck almost just went out. It also is a guaranteed sinus infection. And the reason why is because my sinuses are dry enough. And if I take an antihistamine, whatever, infection is there just gets driven into the tissues, and then it's really hard to get rid of. So anyway, let's talk about more pleasant things concerning the breath. So, let's take a look. And I don't know that I'll get much beyond this book tonight because it's really the one that I've used the most. And there's just a lot here. So, Free Your Breath, Free Your Life, Dennis Lewis. How conscious breathing can relieve stress, increase vitality, and help you live more fully. And it really is an excellent, excellent book. Let's look at the contents. And any meditation that you do is going to at least touch on breath or, ask you to breathe in a certain way. But we need to know how breathing works and what the best way to breathe is and have some experience of this in order for it to really function for us as a meditative tool, whether you're sitting and watching the breath in meditation or, just using breath as a way to help relax at the beginning of a guided imagery or something like that. So we have ways of working with your breath: conscious breathing, controlled breathing, focused breathing, movement-supported breathing, position-supported breathing, touch-supported, and sound-supported. And then we have opening up the breathing spaces of the body. We have the metaphysical breath, going deeper practices and meditations for self-exploration. Other core teachings and practices, so this is the appendix, helpful breath-related exercises for daily living and suggested practice routines. And I'm going to go back to the appendix right off the bat here because there's something that you need to know about. And this section is called The Importance of Breathing Through Your Nose. Now, I would be willing to bet most of the classes that you take exercise, or people that say, okay, let's relax and let's do this exercise, and if they're coaching you through breathing, they're going to say breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, and that's not the way to do it, and here's why. It's extremely important to learn to breathe through your nose, except when you're doing special breathing exercises that call for mouth breathing, or when you're unable to breathe through your nose because of injury or illness. The basic principles when we breathe through our nose, so you've got cilia in your nose that filter things out. You breathe in through your mouth, you're taking in particulates. You breathe through your nose, the hairs in your nose filter those things out. We automatically secrete mucus to trap these things or sneeze to expel them. The mucous membranes of our septum, which divides the nose into two cavities, further prepare the air for our lungs by warming and humidifying it. So, like, you go outside when it's cold in the winter, if you're breathing through your mouth, you're going to feel the effects of that cold air hitting your lungs. So when it goes through your nose, it gets filtered, it gets warmed, and it gets humidified. So you're not sucking dry air into your lungs, you're sucking, moist, you're just breathing in moistened, warmed air. Another very important reason for breathing through the nose has to do with maintaining the correct balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the blood. When we breathe through our mouths, we usually inhale and exhale air quickly in large volumes. This often leads to chronic hyperventilation, so breathing excessively fast or breathing in too much air too quickly. It's important to recognize that the amount of carbon dioxide in our blood that generally regulates our breathing. So it's the carbon dioxide in your blood that regulates the breathing. That's what triggers the need to take in more oxygen. Research has shown if we release carbon dioxide too quickly, the arteries and vessels carrying blood to our cells constrict, and the oxygen in our blood is unable to reach the cells in sufficient quantity. This includes the carotid arteries, which carry blood and oxygen to the brain. The red blood cells also become sticky and are slow to release the oxygen into the cells. The lack of sufficient oxygen going to the cells of the brain can turn on our sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, and make us tense, anxious, irritable, and depressed. There are some researchers, such as Dr. Konstantin Pavlovich Buteyko, who believe that mouth breathing and the associated chronic hyperventilation that often engenders can contribute to the onset of asthma, high blood pressure, heart disease, and many other medical problems. One more good reason for nose breathing. In his book, Dr. Fulford's Touch of Life, Dr. Robert Fulford, D.O., has this to say: remember, always try to breathe through your nostrils and not through your mouth, because air must contact the olfactory nerves to stimulate your brain and put it into its natural rhythm. If you don't breathe through your nose, in a sense, you're only half alive. So, really interesting stuff there. So, and breathing, breathing in and out through your nose does literally regulate the speed of the breath coming in and going out right off the bat. And so you're going to come into rhythm. And I know, as far as anxiety goes, when we're anxious, we tend to gasp for air. And if you're ever having a high anxiety moment, like speaking in front of people, one of the biggest fears there are for human beings, we can start, and tell me if you've ever had this experience where you're doing something and you're like feeling really out of breath, and so you're trying to talk and trying to get a breath, and you keep sucking in air and you feel like you can't get your breath, and that's because you forgot something. You forgot to breathe out. So, and if you try that, just sort of continually breathing in and not really breathing out all the way, you're going to start to feel anxious. So, get my breath out. So, some meditation practices will talk about focusing on the exhale. When you start to focus on your breath and relax, they'll say focus on the exhale. When you are having anxiety issues, slowing the breath down is really paramount, and being able to exhale slowly can really help you get a grip on it. Okay, we're going to look at a little bit more of this book here and a couple of the exercises in it. And then I'm going to cut this short. We've got 35 minutes. I'll go just a little bit longer. And since I don't have anybody here with me, but you'll have a video. Okay, so let's look at opening up the spaces in your body. Well, actually, let's look at the first thing. All right. So we're going to look at different ways to breathe, ways of working with your breath. Conscious breathing is the first one, and that is just watching it, being aware of it. So it's the best place to start, because to correct your breathing and work with your breathing, you have to start with where you are and know what state you're in. So it's just about sitting and kind of seeing where your breath is in your body, taking a deep breath, noticing what parts of your body expand. And, you know, one of the things you'll notice for Westerners, we breathe up here. Everything's up here. Yes, your chest does move in and out when you breathe, but what really needs to be moving in and out is this right here. That's your diaphragm. So here's one of the things you can do is put your hands on your belly like this. And when you take a deep breath in, you expand your belly and your fingers come apart. I hope you heard that. So yes, learning to drop your breath down in and breathe from the diaphragm. But, you know, be aware of when you're looking at things, really strict breathing instructions. And there's, you know, breathing meditation and working with the breath goes from just simply watching the breath very, very gently to really intense practices of controlled breathing. And you want to follow a continuum when you're approaching these things. You want to start with the gentle and see how you go. Integrate one thing at a time, and then move on to, you know, more aggressive yogic practices or pranic practices. Okay, so conscious breathing is to become aware of your breath, and not just, you know, as you're sitting. I mean, of course, it starts with just spending 5 minutes, you know, to just sit down and watch what's happening in your body. Sit in a good way. Now, I'm on a kneeler chair because I can't sit very long in regular ones, but the kneeler chair is also getting to me. I've been doing a lot of computer work and it's hurting my tailbone. But it puts your spine in its natural curve from the bottom to the top and balances your head and makes it easy to keep your shoulders in a decent position. So you get yourself in a good, relaxed position, relaxed, natural, easy position for you. Again, don't try to fix everything at the same time. And then just spend time watching your breath. Now, it's going to change on any given day. There are some days where I'm carrying a lot of tension in my body and I can't get a really deep breath and I have to do some work in order to get there. Some days it just naturally is there. Most of the time, though, I mean, breath is one of those things that happens without your attention. So it's a really interesting practice to just bring your attention to it and see what's up, see what's going on. They've got an experiment in breath awareness, and it's basic sitting and you know, paying attention to how you're breathing. Controlled breathing, pranayama, is the name of the yogic practice of breath control exercises. And, you know, it can be as simple as counting breaths. Inhale to a 4 count, hold it to a 7 count, exhale to an 8 count, pause for a 4 count, things like that, just to sort of regulate the breath. And when this happens too, when you regulate your breath, there are chemical signals that are sent to your brain that'll tell it that everything's okay and we can relax. So if you start breathing in a really stressed out, anxious way, you're going to start feeling those emotions. And if you know, get a hold of your breath in the other direction, it can alleviate those emotions. Okay. Okay, so it's talking about breathing through your nose. All right. Then it's talking about indiscriminate use of breath control exercises, so good warnings there. Focused breathing and self healing, so you can put your, like, direct your breath to a certain area of your body. So you might say, let's say you're working with the chakras, breathe into the root chakra, and imagine when you breathe, you're breathing in and out of your root chakra. You can do skin breathing, where you imagine that the in breath is literally coming in through your skin, and you're breathing out through your skin. That can be a great way to really waken up, like, your capillaries and relax them, and get into your body and feel very much embodied. Breathing into a tight area of your body. So let's say if your low back is really tight, and you just breathe and send your breath there. And this is, again, an easy thing, not a strenuous thing, not an aggressive, strenuous thing. You just want it to be relaxed and easy. Getting to know breathing spaces, movement supported breathing. So of course, primarily yoga there. But I mean, things where you can just raise your arms on the in-breath. I have to kind of turn to the side because I've got a cabinet to my side. So and when you do this, when you raise your arms, what you're doing is opening up your rib cage. So you're already expanding the space that your lungs occupy, and it's very easy to get a much deeper breath. So if your breath is clamped down, this is one of the very simplest ways you can start to open it up. So that's a movement-based breathing exercise. Okay, the bouncing breath, the laughing breath. Laughing is incredible for opening up your breathing. Having a great big belly laugh. If you ever notice a big laugh or a big cry afterwards, how, your breath is just, you take a full deep breath, and it's amazing. And that's, emotional energy held in the body creates tension and creates blockages, and makes it so you can't really breathe fully. So all the more important to stay on top of your emotions, to let the weeping happen when it needs to happen, and to have a good laugh every now and again. Position supported breathing. Influence of sleeping postures on breathing. So there's all kinds of things. Now, there are, they talk about touch supported breathing. So you can lie on your back on the floor and start to breathe, and just sort of massage your belly across the bottom of your ribs where your diaphragm is, and loosen that up so that it opens your belly. We're obsessed in our culture with having tight abs, having the six pack. That's not the best for breathing. So, when you're out in public, if you're wearing something, suck in your gut and keep your abs tight and everything, not conducive to a deep breath. So one of the things I tell people when I'm leading meditation, and it's funny how many people get confused about it. I will start with breathe out and squeeze all the breath out of your lungs, gently squeeze all the breath out of your lungs. And then I'll say, soften your belly and let the next breath come in. And people are like, soften your belly, what does that mean? It means don't suck in your gut. It means let it be soft. It means just go, So then the next breath can come in on a nice deep level. So touch supported, and you can do that too if you're breathing to a particular part of your body. If you put your hand there, it helps to, in a sensory way, to direct your breath. Now I want to talk about some things in this book that are amazing to open up the breathing spaces. First of all, to sit, I'm going to scoot back a little bit here. To sit in a good posture. So you're not military straight, and you're not crunched down on your diaphragm. I mean, most of us sit like this. We slump. And the physical therapy that I just went through in January and February was all about getting the muscles in my back and between my shoulder blades I'm looking at my shoulders right here, and boy, do they look off. This one looks lower than this one. That was weird. Okay, anyway, the exercises I did were all about really strengthening my mid back so that my neck is in a good position, and they really, really helped. So you want to get your spine in a good position. If you're sitting on the floor, stick a cushion under your butt, like, this high, so that you get that good position. If you're sitting in a chair, just kind of sit forward on it. Don't lean back against the back, and, hands on thighs, and just nice. And then, start taking some deep breaths, and then sort of lean back and take a deep breath. Sort of arch your back. And then you'll feel the breath opening up in the front. And then you can kind of crunch. I'll stay by the microphone. Crunch down or fold over. And take a breath. Or, I think it's child's pose in yoga, where you're sitting on your knees and you're folded over with your arms back. And then as you breathe, you feel the back of your lungs opening up. So the bottom is, particularly the back and the bottom of our lungs, don't get used that much. And when I was singing, I used to do, I gotta crack my back. I used to do an exercise where you breathe with your hands on your like right at the bottom of where your ribs are, and you breathe and push those hands out so that those muscles are loose enough to allow full breath back in the back of your lungs. And then you can very gently kind of lean to the left, and you take a deep breath, and it opens up your side on this side, and then you gently lean this way and take a deep breath, and it opens up on this side. So there are great exercises that you can do there to really open up the breathing spaces. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to talk about this real quick, and I will be going soon. So we have this deck called Breathe Easy. And it's kind of, it's one of these decks where I'm like, is this a divinatory? It's on my list. It's in the collection. It's Zerner and Farber, and they certainly do divinatory things. But it's talking about the breath in more esoteric senses. So it is a divinatory deck. So we have keywords. And let's see here. Let's see what this one says. I will do a review of this. I'll do a full review. But let's just take one from this and have a little message before I get going here. So let's wake them up. I would like a message for my viewers, please. If they've stuck around this long, which they haven't. Okay. 2 of them made a jump. No, I am wrong. 3 of them made a jump. Okay. We have peace. Peace says, I am peaceful. Peace comes when we allow all expectations to float away. I breathe in acceptance. So here's the breathing part of this deck. I breathe in acceptance of the ways others express their point of view. I am filled with happiness as I achieve my own personal peace with the world. I breathe out hatred and intolerance. And, okay, that causes me some dissonance, but it's okay. I'll talk about it at another time. Okay. The next one is beauty. I am beautiful. Beauty is found in the exchange of love between all beings. I breathe in the beautiful colors, fragrances, and forms around me. I am filled with the beauty that is my birthright. I breathe out the critic's voice that says things are not perfect. And then the third one is Oracle. And we've got kind of a do the fucking thing. Okay, there we go. We've got a Buddha, which is interesting. Okay, I am an oracle. An oracle is aware of the subtle voices and symbols that reveal the messages that guide us. I breathe in the trust I need to follow my intuition. I am filled with the wisdom of my higher self. I breathe out my doubt that the answers will come to me. So, just a little something. We'll see what happens next week, whether I continue with the library or whether we start doing some meditation. Certainly, if you've watched this far, two of us are still there. Yay! Okay, I didn't see anything. But let me know what else you'd like to hear about. You know, if there's something that would really turn your crank, we could talk crystals, we can talk anything, you know, anything. So let me know what you'd like, and you know, particularly on these videos, because I will look at the comments when I'm planning next week's. I could look at some of like my favorite life-changing novels. I've got several of those that I would be happy to talk about. Um, I don't know. We'll see. I've got things on mudras. I've got Brene Brown books. If you haven't read any Brene Brown, folks, get on it. Get on it. If you want to get through the most karmic bullshit and clear the most karma in this lifetime that you can, read some Brene Brown. Anyhow, thanks for hanging out, you two. Michelle, I don't see, well, because some whoever else is here didn't is not chatting. It's not chatting with us. So anyway, thanks for hanging out, you guys. I'm going to take my sinus headache and go. So, oh God, see, I can't even think. This is the way I get when my sinuses are bad. When my sinuses are bad, my teeth hurt. I don't think clearly. I'm not breathing, you know, well, because my sinuses are a mess. So anyway, I will see you on Friday for another unboxing and other stuff coming up, I'm sure, that I don't know about now. And I'll see you guys again sometime. Blessed be. I'll go back to where I was in the beginning here, talking about breathing. So, you know, yeah, let's bring it full circle. Let's talk about breathing. When we've got a disease going around that is transmitted on the breath and we have to wear things that block breath like this, and I wore this in the beginning because I specifically wanted to talk about it. Wearing a mask initially kicks my anxiety off something awful. I mean, when I first started wearing them, I actually got lightheaded. I would be wearing it and just started getting lightheaded. And I was wearing one of my son's, which was kind of like a microfiber mask, and I think it just wasn't breathable enough. But same with these masks. If I put a coffee filter in here and I have to wear it for a long time, I feel like I'm starting to get lightheaded and I have to, you know, pinch it out, which defeats the entire purpose. But if you find that happening when you wear a mask, the thing to do is slowly make yourself breathe slowly. So when you're releasing all that carbon dioxide, and sometimes when I'm exhaling, I'll open it just a little bit, you know, and then a slow, deep breath in, and can help you get as much oxygen as you can, and also planning trips so that you don't have to be wearing one for a really long time, because it is a pain in the ass. But you know what? Wear it all the damn time. Have certain places I go to where I'm seeing most people. I went to the grocery store today and I saw one person in that store without a mask. And I'm noticing when I'm in these situations and there's only one or two people without masks and everybody else is wearing them, at least the people without them are starting to look a little sheepish about it. So, yeah, wear them because we have to. And if you can't wear it for a long time, well, there's a signal that you don't be out where you have to for a long time. The more you're around people and have to wear a mask and protect yourself in that way, the higher the risk is. So, anyhow, take care until I see you again, everybody. I'll see you live next Wednesday and drop in a video on Friday. Until then, peace.